Today's video, I want to show you guys a fly that if you live in the central United States, central east United States, you need to have. We are going to have an apocalyptic event take place this year, and you need to be prepared for it. If you're a fly fisherman and you don't have these in your box, you're missing out this year. So what I'm going to do is we are talking about this amazing cicada hatch that's going to take place. And from everything I'm reading and hearing about, this is going to be like Exodus Bible locust swarm. I mean, it's going to be incredible. Now, I have fished with some of these in the past where there were smaller hatches, and this is literally the most fun you can have with your clothes on. This is hands down the funnest fly fishing you'll ever get to do in your life. And that was just with one hatch. There are multiple hatches taking place this year, and they say that this is the first time in over 200 years that they're all going to hatch at the same time. There's literally going to be billions of these on the water. So when you're fishing these, the fish start getting careless and they'll just hit whatever hits on the water that looks like it. So this one, I like. This is the version that I've created, and I've stolen some ideas from here and there, and this has got the most action that I like. Now, the annual cicadas are kind of like green and black in color, and these 17-year hatches, they're orange and black. So I'm making the orange and black because that's the big hatch this year. If you're fishing somewhere and you want to make some that are green, just change out what I have that's orange in this list and change it to green, and you'll be able to do both. So I would have some of both in the deal, but the big hatch, they're going to be orange and black. So let's get started. I'm going to show you the materials that we use. So the very first thing we're going to use is we're going to have some black and some orange craft foam. Now, if you guys have been watching me very long, I have a video that shows you guys how to take a noodle maker and you run your foam through the noodle maker and it frays it off just like this at the end. So you need to cut your foam just like this. So if you have a noodle maker, awesome. If you don't, you can take a pair of scissors and you can cut it down into 1/8" strips. You can take a paper cutter, or they sell a product called fettuccine foam that's the same thing. So you want to have some strips of foam. Now these strips of foam, let's set that back down, they tie like deer hair, so it's a pretty awesome thing to do. So now for the wing back, we're going to use the black craft foam again, and we're going to put a little indicator out of orange on top, and that's just for us old guys can see where we're at in the water. For the legs, we're going to use what I call a koosh ball. They're a toy. You can get them at any department store. And they're made out of this thicker rubber material. This is my favorite leg material for these. This isn't because I don't have regular leg material. These work better. This is what I would encourage you to use. If you don't have one of these, orange rubber legs will work fine. But these bugs, when I fished them before, you'll watch them land on the water and they can't get off. So they're swimming around, you know, stirring up a bunch of stink, and they draw a lot of attention. The fish just jump out of the water with them. These legs are stiffer and they create more action, and I think it replicates what happens on the water better, and I had better luck with them. So then we're going to use some Galaxy Mop chenille. Now basically this is just a variegated chenille, and it is orange and black. If you're fishing a green one, use green and black. You don't have to use this, but I think it makes it look a little bit more realistic, and it adds some bulk to my tie-in. So when I'm tying on the hook, it gives me a little bit more secure area to tie my foam into. So we're going to use that. We're going to use some orange thread and some black thread. And for the eyes, we are going to use these little quilter pins. Now, these are red pins that I get, and the package is right here. They are a size 22, and I got these at Hobby Lobby. You can get them anywhere they're sewing stuff. They're just them big, long sewing needles. The size 22 is a little smaller than most. The next thing you're going to need is some EP fibers. And what I use for EP fibers is I get Bonnie craft cord, and it's just poly yarn. So you can take this, you can fray it out. Works unbelievable. And that's it. It's a pretty simple fly to tie. So what we're going to do is we are going to put our hook in the vise. Now our hook is going to be a size 4 dry fly, 1X long. Now you want to use a big hook. You can go bigger actually, because they're going to get on the water. And this big gap hook, the reason that we use a big gap hook is to make a keel in the water like a duck decoy. And basically all that's going to do is tip that fly to where it lands in the water like it's supposed to. So very first thing I do is I take some brush on super glue. Now I take just a little bit of that and I put it on the hook shaft. And the reason I'm doing that is these things are going to get tore up on the water. This holds everything together, and it'll also keep the fly from spinning around. It just makes it way more durable. So once I get that in there, I'm going to make some thread wraps through that super glue. And that's just basically going to help secure everything that I'm trying to tie down. Then I'm going to take my Galaxy chenille, And like you see, this is just a variegated orange and black, and it's got a little glitter in there. I think it helps. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to tie it on, but I'm not wrapping the hook with it. As you see, I let my thread wrap take it to the bottom, and then I'm just going to tie it to the bottom of the hook. And all that's going to do is basically add just a little bit of color to the bottom. So now that I have that tied in, the very first thing I'm going to do after that is I'm going to gather up 5 of these little pieces of foam that we have ran through our noodle cutter. So now I have 5 of these together, and I'm going to squeeze them together kind of like a pencil, and I'm going to squeeze them about the length of the hook shank, and I'm going to pinch them down, and I'm going to make a loose wrap, and I'm going to squeeze it, a tighter wrap, squeeze it, and I'm going to do basically just like it's deer hair. Once I get that done, I'm going to cut. I'm going to fold that back, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. Loose wrap, tighten, tight, tight, fold them back. Once I fold them back, kind of build up like a dam wall. And it kind of works on the bottom, because as you build up that little wall, you're also basically making a variegation, so it looks kind of like the body segments on the bottom. So now I'm going to grab some more, because I didn't run them all the way through, so they're kind of short. If you run the whole sheet through, normally it'll give you enough to do it all. So I'm going to pinch this back, a loose wrap, tight wrap, tight wrap. I'm going to fold it all together. I'm going to build up a little bit of a dam right here to try to keep them going in the right direction. Then just do a half hitch. Amateur hour over here. Do a half hitch. Cut your line. Okay, so now that we have that cut, we're going to just make this the body. Now this is really going to tighten down as we're cutting it. So we want to leave some a little bit straggler, because if you look at the body of a fly, they're not a perfectly smooth thing, especially on these. So we want to cut it to where it transitions good, but when it hits that water, it'll help kind of bubble and make a little bit more movement. So we're going to just take and cut the foam, and this will make a mess. You're going to have foam everywhere when you get done with this. And you're just going to start mimicking basically the body of what that fly should look like. And we want to taper from the back forward pretty good. So that our wings have a place to go. So I've built that up, and you can see there's some orange that's hanging out the bottom. So I'm going to rotate that fly to where it's at, and I kind of like that orange where it's at. It's going to all fall in together, and it's going to work out really well like that. So now that I've done that, I've got my orange body on the bottom. So now we're going to add a little bit more orange. We're going to take our thread, and we're just going to wrap it on to tie in our wings, and we'll do this section with orange, and it just builds a little bit more like sparkle to the water, and it makes it a little easier for us to see as well. So now we're going to take a piece of the foam, and I'm going to cut a piece about 3/8 of an inch by maybe 2 inches, something like that. Doesn't have to be anything specific. Just I want to fold it up over the fly, and I want to leave this back about 3/4 of the way. So I'm going to make a loose wrap, a loose wrap. Then I'm going to take my poly yarn. If you have EP fibers, you don't have to do this part, but with the poly yarn, I take my dubbing needle and I just kind of separate the strands. So I've got the strands kind of separated. This is a cat pet, like brush your cats with. I'm going to just kind of rub that through it, and it comes out nice and fuzzy. So once I get that done, I'm going to cut it, kind of secure it all together and cut it. Once I get that cut, I'm going to just kind of tie that in. And you see how I've left a little bit extra on the front portion. Then I'm going to just fold this over, creating the head of the fly. So I want to make a kind of bulky head. I'm going to tie that in just a few times. Once I get that done, I'm going to take and just cut this thing back, kind of at an angle. Then I'm going to take the wing material and I'm going to separate it, and I'm going to cut them accordingly. So I got that all done, and if there's some stragglers, who cares? It does not matter. It makes it look more realistic. So once I have that done, now we want to make it where we can see it on the water a little better. The wings will let us see it a little bit, but this will help it. So we're just going to take about a 3/8 by like 1/2 inch piece. You can also take like a hole puncher and punch these through, and all you're doing is just going to take this little piece and you're going to tie it up top. When you get that tied in place, trim it accordingly. Okay, so now we need 2 of our little rubber legs. So I got 2 rubber legs. Now, a lot of the flies that I see, people add a whole lot of legs, and that's fine, but the legs fall back into the wings and it kind of all works itself. And I like the keep it simple, stupid method. So this is how I tie. Like I say, I've had really good luck with these. And that was on a year that we didn't have this crazy hatch. So this is all I do. So now I've got the legs tied in. The underside is going to have a lot more orange because of my tie-in. I'm going to take and make a big old mess. I'm going to do a whip finish. I'll just do it by hand. We're going to do a whip finish and tie that in real good. Now I've got 2 whip finishes there, but I'm also going to be gluing that in, so it doesn't really matter. So now that's pretty much the fly, but to make it look a little bit more realistic, and I don't know that this matters, but I like to do it. I've got a little pair of dikes. I can't say that right. So anyhow, I'm going to cut to where I just have a little bitty piece of that. I'm going to do this on 2 of them. So I've got my 2 little bitty pieces. Now I'm going to take my gel super glue. I'm going to put some of that on the little bitty piece of the shaft that is left. I'm going to jab that in to the front of the fly and repeat. And if you can do this without getting super glue on your fingers, you have accomplished something. So I'm going to poke the next one on the other side. And there you have it. So once you get that done, all you need to do is kind of trim out and spread those wings a little bit. And then what I like to do is I turn it over, and I am going to take some of my brush on super glue and really hit that thread and wing area just to where it's not spinning. You can use head cement, but these things get tore up really bad, so I try my hardest to make them as wearable as I can. So there you have it, guys. There is your fly for the apocalypse that's going to take place this year. And the little eyes, I think, make it look realistic. The body segments, you see it actually looks more like a fly than just a piece of foam. And this is my favorite version, guys, so it's not real hard to do. If you haven't played around with the foam, I encourage you to do it, man. You can really make some cool stuff with this. These things are going to be what you want to have this summer. I'm telling you, this summer, if you live in these areas, I don't know that you need anything but this fly. If you want to catch fish, and big fish especially, this is going to be what you need to have. I've went on one trip with these before, and it was hands down epic. I mean, there's no other word for it. It was absolutely epic. So tie you up some of these. They're going to be the thing to have this year. And thank you guys for watching. We will see you in the next video.